Hello gamers, I'm NKZL, and in this video we are going to take a look at the complaints and concerns that popped up in the community after the crossplay beta for the First Descendant. I'll be honest here, I played the beta and I had a wonderful time. Overall, I did enjoy what they have to show us. However, this does not mean that the game is without fault, and in this video we are going to explore the complaints that had been raised by the community and see if they have any merit. If you want to see my opinion on the game itself, you can check my other video. The first and one of the concerns that a certain minority is very vocal about is always monetization, so let's talk about this first. I assume you know what the First Descendant is before clicking on this video. In case you don't, it's a character-based looter-shooter where the vast majority of content is centered around progression. The game will have various visual customization options, from name cards and titles to skins, and regardless if you like it or not, in a live service games the vast majority of visual customization will be sold for money in a form or another. This is something that everyone has to accept, and it is not the point the community is raising. We are going to talk about how money will affect your progression. Obtaining new characters and ultimate grade weapons will involve grinding materials and researching both components and the complete product. This research will take time. For characters, at this time is 12 hours and 6 hours for their components. If you sync them up, this will mean at least 18 hours. For weapons, it will be 4 hours, and for their components it will be 2 hours, so at least 6 hours. There are other various things that you might need for upgrades, like phase exchangers that will take a little bit over 1 hour for 5 of them, which is the amount required to transfer the levels of a weapon. These timers can be skipped using credits. This is a currency in the game, and despite the beta not having access to a cash shop, we can make an educated guess and determine that this currency will be the cash shop currency. People are worried that others will be able to skip the grind and the timers using real money, effectively paying to progress faster, which is a form of pay to win. The devs have stated that they are going to have a similar monetization to other titles in the same genre. It's important to always take these comments with a grain of salt, because as we should very well know by now, they never hold much weight until the game is actually out. That being said, this game is heavily inspired by Warframe, and after playing the game and experiencing the various systems, I can say that the cash shop will most likely be very similar to Warframe. In case you didn't or don't play Warframe, you can use money to purchase almost everything in Warframe. There are a few things that you have to work for, but the vast majority of things you can simply purchase from the cash shop or use the cash shop currency to trade with other players and get them that way. You can also use cash shop currency to speed up things or buy boosters and so on. Warframe has proven that this monetization model works very well. Warframe is one of the most successful live service games. There are a couple of reasons for this, so let's explore them and see if they apply in this case. In my opinion, the most important reason is because these games are centered around progression. Paying to skip that progression does nothing other than diminish the content available to you. You are literally paying to skip parts of the game. It's like paying in Skyrim for quests to automatically complete, or paying in Elden Ring to skip boss battles. Coupled with the fact that these games are not competitive games, means that if you choose to spend money to progress, you are not affecting anyone else other than yourself. There is another reason that I believe is relevant. Warframe has player trading that is centered around the cash shop currency. This allows someone to fully explore the cash shop without paying money. Make no mistake, playing the game just to trade for platinum is a massive waste of time. You can buy platinum for a few hours worth of work, equivalent to tens or hundreds of hours worth of farming. But the option is there, and it does make a difference. Regardless of this, I champion this kind of system, because it allows players that cannot spend to fully explore the cash shop, and at the same time it allows players to trade for what they need. Sometimes even things that are no longer obtainable in-game, so it's a win-win situation. Let's see how this applies to the First Descendant. Just like Warframe, this game is centered around progression, so that still applies, and I believe because of it, most people will not care too much about the cash shop in regards to progression. But at the same time, there is no player trading in the First Descendant, and this is a negative. Hopefully the devs will notice the feedback and decide to implement player trading and follow in the footsteps of Warframe. There is something else that's worth mentioning here, and it is regarding the fact that the First Descendant timers for researching characters and weapons is roughly 3 to 5 times shorter than in Warframe, and this means that people will be less inclined to spend on skipping. At the end of the day, it is up to each of us to decide if this matters or not and act accordingly. If this is something that upsets you and you don't like, then do the smart thing and don't play the game. Vote with your time and money. There are way too many people that complain about these things and then go and play these games for hundreds or thousands of hours, which basically means that all their complaints are meaningless. But you might not care about monetization, so let's explore a few of the other complaints that will most likely affect all of us. The next complaint is about content. You move through the story in these open world zones and do missions, and as you complete zones, it will unlock 2 endless type missions for each zone. This is one of the type of endgame content available, and then there is the void interception battles, where you fight big bosses with their own mechanics, breakable parts and so on, and this is another. These highlighted a few problems, so let's discuss them. The first problem would be that the quests in these zones are basically one-time content. This means that once you complete the story in these zones, they will most likely be dead. And I think this is a waste of resources. Some of the quests we have to do are interesting. Like, there is a quest that requires you to jump on platforms and collect some orbs. But because this is not really content that involves some random elements, and it is not something you have to repeat, coupled with the fact that if these quests are not active, these zones feel pretty empty and lifeless after you complete them once. I feel like there is wasted potential here. From a developer's perspective, I understand this has been done to optimize the hell out of the game and provide a smooth experience for everyone, even people that play on older machines. But just because I understand it, does not mean that I agree with it. I would very much prefer for these zones to have some random events in them and even some critters running around. Would be nice if these zones had some secrets and puzzles as well. This would give people a reason to explore them and reuse these assets to extend the available content. I understand this would most likely cause some optimization problems and maybe the game would not be released on older generation consoles, but personally I prefer to have an immersive world even at this cost. Then there is the endgame content that is a bit samey with the exception of interception boss battles. This beta was limited, so we only got to explore 3 zones and a few interception battles. Personally, I think it's too early to complain about this endgame aspect. After all, the game will have between 4 to 7 more zones at release and of course more interception void battles. So the content might end up being way more varied, or it might not. But the truth is that the beta was limited, and because of that we cannot really say what the other zones had to offer and what other endgame avenues will be available. Another thing that we have to understand is that this is a new game, and as a new game should be compared to how new games get released. If you compare it to how Warframe was at release or how Destiny 2 was at release, I believe this game is in a much better state. That being said, it's 2023 and we as gamers have higher expectations now. So I do hope they manage to improve on the available content, both throughout the journey and at endgame. I also believe that the game desperately needs to offer side content that is optional. Side content is content that can be missed but brings a lot of richness to the game world. I'll be honest here, I'm not worried about all this. We didn't get to experience the full game and all the live service games will release with too little endgame content. It's always been like this. Then 6-12 months down the line they will release an update that will completely change this. It's the cycle of development. Think back on Destiny 2. Had nothing to do other than one endgame raid until the first DLC, and you can take the vast majority of MMOs and you will see that the same apply to them. This is why I think side content and plentiful story quests are needed to keep the average player occupied. I say average player because they are the audience for any game, and because trying to satisfy hardcore players will be a fool's errand, and it is always something almost impossible to do. Overall, I think while these problems might turn some people away from the game, I am still looking forward to the game, and as always with live service games, I know this game has the potential to keep me entertained from time to time, just like Warframe or Wayfinder does. I think this game will provide a wonderful experience for the average player for a while, but I also think it desperately needs side content and it needs to reuse those open world zones, because I feel like it's such a waste to have them as one-time content. This was my feedback. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Maybe you see things differently than I do. Maybe there are other things that bother you and I didn't mention. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe, or don't. See you in the next one, gamers.